Hello and welcome back to BikeSocial. I'm Michael Mann and this is the latest episode of Better Riding, brought to you by Bennetts and Honda Motorcycles UK. So this series brings you tips and advice that will make you better at being a motorbiker. And that is whether you're new to riding or you've been doing it for 50 years. Of course, new to riding, you could be 17, you could be 57. There's still new riders out there, regardless of age. Anyway, we all want to be better and we all can be better. We've teamed up with professional motorbike coach Mark McVeigh, an experienced rider coach, an ex-MotoGP engineer, a riding academy owner for over 20 years, and the inventor of the MotoDNA rider training tech. Now, Mark has taught more than 10,000 riders to be smarter and safer and more confident. And here he is joining me now. He's 9 hours ahead of me, sitting there on the east coast of Australia. G'day, Mark.
G'day, Mike. Hey, Michael. How you going there?
Yes, fabulous. Thank you. How are you, mate?
Yes, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. It's our winter here, so it's got down to 20 degrees during the day, so it's a bit tough right now.
Yeah. What are we talking about today, Mr. McVeigh?
Yep, so today we're on about motorbike intuition, so developing your riding sixth sense.
Let's define what intuition is then.
Yep. Okay. So we've got a few references to research here, and we'll put those in the description in the video. But according to psychologists, intuition is the ability to understand or know something instinctively, and then our subconscious brain attempts to use patterns of thinking based on prior experience. So these are important things to consider when we're developing our motorbike intuition.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it might sound a little bit obvious, but it's nice to hear it from an expert. Can you perhaps surmise why intuition is important for motorcycle riding?
Well, I guess if you think about, especially the roughly half of motorbike crashes involving other vehicles, one of the critical elements for, our rider's safety is the ability to anticipate what car drivers are going to do before they actually do it. And, we're kind of not making this up. And if we look at more research, this time neuroscience research from Zion University, they say intuition plays a crucial role in human driving decision making. And this rapid and unconscious cognitive process is essential for improving traffic safety. So if we have a motorbike intuition or sixth sense, we'll be able to predict what a driver's likely to do based on our experience. So it's kind of like a shortcut to make decisions quickly and with limited cognitive load. That's an important thing to understand too. And it can really help our hazard perception and ultimately reduce our risk when we're riding.
Sixth Sense reminds me of some Hollywood movies, but can you, again, perhaps you can describe that in motorcycle terms?
Yeah, well, it's kind of the same as intuition, and intuition, sixth sense allows you to grasp a situation quickly and and kind of analyze it, and often people talk about gut feeling as well. That's something too. So psychologists, they believe intuition is the mind's ability to identify patterns from the past experience and then apply them to the current situation.
Okay, but how do we develop that sixth sense if we haven't got the experience? And obviously, I'm referring to those the newer riders among us.
Yeah, well, that is the crux of the matter. The problem is if you must have had that experience and memory to develop the intuition and the sixth sense. And for motorbike riders, those memories are the close calls and our mates' experiences. They might share them, during their riding journey. But of course, inexperienced riders, they're more vulnerable because they are more likely to learn the hard way from the close calls or the school of hard knocks, if you like.
Well, presumably because you have motorbikecoach.com and you've got your own sort of curriculum and system. How can you kind of run through how that helps riders develop that sixth sense?
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's have a look at the research again. It's most apparent in the decisions of experts who draw on years of experience in unconscious frameworks to make lightning fast, high quality decisions. So, as a motorbike coach, well over 10,000 riders over a couple of decades. You could say I'm this expert, right? And it was really when I realized this, probably over 15 years ago, I went, okay, I need to take what's in my brain and be mindful, of this experience and these networks and turn them into a writing system to help, develop this intuition for my students.
Having listened to you for the last 13 or so episodes, or 13 and a bit episodes, I can definitely agree that you are an expert in this, all things motorcycling. But Mark, how can you train a rider's sixth sense?
Yeah, 100%. So we know that, we spoke about before, Michael, it can take 10,000 hours to mastery, of golf, snooker, soccer, whatever. Motorbikes are just the same thing, right? So, regularly practicing the correct riding techniques is essential, but, there's a lot of friction for riders to train. There's a cost element, especially these days. And, your time off work or away from your family, and then the motivation to do it too. And then there's other things like ego and the cognitive bias that we've spoken about before. So, we're developing kind of from the physical school into more digital products to kind of bridge that gap from, I guess, the 20 hours of trying to get your licensing towards the mastery. And that's kind of when it developed this sort of modern riding system. And we spoke before about the three pillars, skill, craft, and mind. And craft is the pillar that we use to develop the intuition, and that's kind of part of the hazard perception. So we'll review, video crashes from videos and close calls from a rider's perspective, from the craft element, and then in the skill pillar, we recreate the crash scenario in a controlled environment with drills, and you've done a lot of those, the corner avoidance, emergency braking, and so forth. And then the rider then needs to practice those correct techniques and reactions until they're intuitive, and I'll go back to, Mike Tyson when he said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And, that's what happens, right? And you'll see it in some of these videos we're going to look at. When you get a surprise on the road, you'll drop to the level of your training.
Yes, it's all about intuition, as you say. But what you're saying here is you're sort of hacking intuition by simulating those common crash scenarios, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. If we understand the driver's behaviors that are likely to cause us harm, we can train and plan that response. Even thinking about it mindfully without the real world experience, or looking at videos. And I've got a pretty crazy example from my riding journey. And, my best mate was killed on the road, and that's kind of why I went motorbike racing. And, that's kind of well known in my community. And went to my first race meeting, and another mate was killed at the race meeting. And, this is pretty heavy, and in Ireland, there was a lot of road racing, a lot of riders got wrecked, and it was kind of like just the way things were in those days. But my mate that was crashed at the race, his brakes failed, so his basically lost his brakes, and he went out of control. So I nearly quit, but I thought, I'll keep going. But what it did was, okay, how to mitigate this risk, So I basically trained my brain. Okay, I made a plan. If the lever ever comes into the bar, you don't have time to pump it or to make, you got to basically do something straight away. So I went, okay, well, I need to get off the bike because the bike is out of control and it's going to take you, somewhere. So I basically put out a 250 GP bike, put it on the stand and put a mattress down, and I basically just rolled off okay, lever comes in, I'll just roll off the bike. And then, so that was fine. And then luckily enough, I didn't have any issues. I raced for about 5-6 years. Never had any issues, luckily enough, where I had a brake failure, probably because I did most of the mechanicing myself. But came to Australia, and 15 years later, I was racing, not even racing, it was like at a track day on a mate's supermoto. And basically, he was like a dirt tracker in Australia, like the Casey Stoners. He did a lot of dirt tracks. So he kind of was sideways everywhere, whereas I was kind of like 250 GP style, like all on the front brake, almost endo. So I cooked the brake fluid, and the lever came into the bar, and instantly I got off the bike, and the bike careered into the catch fence and went up, in the air, and I was on the ground sliding along and just slowing down. So, that just a pretty crazy example, but 15 years later, I still had that sixth sense to do it. And we can apply that to our thinking on the road, with having a plan around, defensive mindset. And there's plenty of neuro research, trying to explain what drivers do, what they do. But it's best just to understand how they behave, because we can't change that, and then just have a plan in place to manage that.
I'm glad that you're self-taught in the end in that case, about how it's almost like learning how to crash, or how to crash safely, or not get caught up in the motorbike's accident yourself, like literally splitting apart. But all right, Mark, let's move on. Tell me about some of the sort of more common motorbike intuition training techniques that you use at the school.
Yeah, well, the first thing we talk to riders about is you actually haven't invented anything new. Thousands of riders have crashed and had these scenarios before. So, we look to the aviation industry for a system, and Motorbike Coach, we use those aviation industry principles. We can learn from other pilots, or in this case, riders' crashes and close calls. And then we've kind of developed a modern riding system, based on that. We've got the safety bubble, appropriate speed, stopping the distance, you can see in your line, positioning, that's a big one. And then we start going through, these videos and talk around each one. So, the biggest one is, you're invisible. You've heard it before, but, it's typical. And here's, the driver just doesn't give way, just keeps going. So, we talk about being invisible to drivers. And the only thing you can trust is their front wheels. Are they moving? What direction? So that's if you're kind of expect that that's going to happen, then you're going to ride a lot more defensively. So that's something to talk about. And then situational awareness is a big one. Predicting drivers around you. What are they going to do? And in this case, we've got from the back. So the guy gets bumped off. So these days, literally, you need eyes in the back of your head. But
that's so unlucky, that one, isn't it? I mean, we can talk about where the wheels are going, or looking into where a driver's eyes might be looking, but that one is just really unlucky.
It is, but the same thing when we show that to our riders, and then we say, okay, are you going to change your behavior? Like when you come onto a set of lights and you're at the front, and you know what I mean, are you going to be looking behind to make sure the car stopped? Who's thinking about that? And most of them are going, okay, well, we get it, we're going to change our kind of behavior there. And then this next one, this one's a really tricky one that none of these riders have been killed, but some of them were really beat up. So the riders, if you look here, and then the car comes out, so that's a real obvious one for positioning. If you look, the whole line on the left was empty, but they stuck pretty much on line position 3 in the right line, which is like they were in the totally wrong space, right? Totally wrong spot. So again, I see this all the time, riding around on the roads. People are kind of oblivious of it. So if we can go through this and show them, hey, this is kind of what can happen, then people will change their behaviors,
Yep. Mark, on that one, I mean, again, you talked a little bit earlier about experience. I've been riding for many, many years, and I would have seen, is there a junction there? I saw the petrol station there on the right-hand side. So you can kind of make an assumption that if it might happen, there's a very strong chance it will happen. But as you said earlier on, it's sometimes that's simply down to experience.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the gut, it's that thing that it happens kind of automatically and fast. That's the thing with intuition. It's kind of like having a motorbike coach in your pocket, if you like. But no, the next one then, if we talk about this is a good one, real surprise, boom, just like that. Yeah, that really surprised me. And if we play this back and we can analyze it a little bit, and if we look, where the rider was, he wasn't really doing too much wrong. He was in line position 3 in his line, which is probably, here it's probably the right place to be, because you got cars on the left, and and then you've got the oncoming cars the other side. But yeah, just at the last minute, this car kind of appears from nowhere, so it's maybe just if you're kind of expecting that to happen, then you might adjust your speed and your position a wee bit to go, or, you're trying to look around. Is there somebody there? So that's something to think about.
And all the time we can say, oh, well, it's the driver's fault and he shouldn't be there. It doesn't matter, does it? Because he's bigger and stronger than any of us motorcyclists. He's got a car. So
exactly.
regardless of whose fault it is, you're right to suggest that we keep that focused all the time.
100%. We're the one in the hospital or on the ground. So yeah, exactly right. This next one then, Michael, is, this is another tricky one. So the car pulls out, looks like it was going to overtake. Yeah, exactly. And we'll just run that back again, because it happens so quick. And, okay, there's a car. Oh, he's just overtaken. No, he stops. So, again, that's a really tricky one. And that's, you could say that's kind of bad luck, right? But yeah, and then if you look at the riding fundamental, to be able to stop in your lane in the distance, you can see he probably was doing that, right? But then the car came in and shortened that gap. So yeah, bloody tricky one. The next one is, this is a good one. That is just that's just pure target fixation. So his mate ran off the road or pulled over or whatever, and he's just he or she just completely target fixated on that rider.
Were they riding too close? Do you think he was riding too close behind?
Yeah, most people are riding too close. Like, it's supposed to be 2 seconds, right? 2 to 3 seconds behind in the dry. So most riders are too close. But I mean, group riding as a whole is always tricky business. And that's just, you've got that kind of herd mentality thing going on. And, it just happens all the time in group riding. You have to be super, super cautious.
In that situation, I'd certainly be saying you need to be having a much bigger gap, and also focus on your ride. In press launches, when we have groups, we have a lead rider, a tail rider, and there's probably 6, 7, 8 journalists all on identical bikes in the middle, and some of them are a little more excitable at riding and press launch situations, and others try to keep up, and sometimes it doesn't end well.
Yeah, that's 100% right. And it's funny, whenever I started racing, that's really where my vision improved massively, because you're going so fast. You've really got to be focused on your markers, where you're going to brake, where you're going to turn in, apex, exit, right? And then if you've got riders around you, you can't actually be looking at those riders because you'll go where you look. So peripherally, you're aware of where those riders are, and then you've got to use that kind of spatial awareness to navigate around them. And then you're looking essentially to the vanishing point. You're looking as far down the track as you can most of the time. And that really accelerated my vision. And of course, then when you go to ride on the road, it's a different type of vision. You're looking far ahead, vanishing point, especially in the country roads. But then you need to scan as well. And we've got some videos that kind of highlight that. And this one's tough. This is a tough one. So there's a car that pulls out there. Yeah. And if we go, okay, well, let's run this back, okay? And really this is per road design. But if you look at, is there any clues? Well, there's kind of like an arrow there pointing in on the left-hand side, but there's no real clues. And it is a little bit blind, like you can't see. So you might have to say, there should be a sign or something, and then there's a car there, right? But yeah, I mean, it just happens so quick. Yeah, and the guy just pulls straight out. So I mean, that's a tough one. And maybe it's just a wee bit of excess speed, but he wasn't really doing too much wrong, that rider, I didn't think.
No, I agree. That's a tough one to analyze and say, well, what could you have been doing better as the rider? Well, actually, not a lot, could you? I mean,
exactly.
Blimey, yeah.
Exactly. It does remind me of one time I remember that, and it was a poor road design. I was in a line position 3, and there was kind of like a central, reservation with hedge. And then all of a sudden there was just this opening and there's a car sitting there, and the speed was like, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 miles an hour. And yeah, that's just a good chance to be killed. Like at that speed, you wouldn't have a chance, into the side of a car. And I was just like, wow, I was really annoyed at myself that I put myself in that situation. So, that's something to be mindful of when you're riding, it doesn't even have to be a close call, but just being mindful of, I wasn't in the optimum position there. Why not? Analyze it and then try and think about it for another day. It can be a tough game, this motorbike riding. But let's hook into the next one. And this is all too common theme. So if you're looking, and then boom.
Oh.
So, that's I basically go, when I'm filtering, I go at a speed that I'm prepared to go into somebody's door when they open the door. So I'm really slow. But I think in this case, he wasn't doing too much wrong. But if you think about, okay, where's the clue? And the clue here is probably that gap in front of this car. Like, car drivers can't help themselves, right? They have to get into that gap, don't they? Just, they're going to get to their destination 2 milliseconds sooner. But yeah, they just got to get in there. And then the last one is my favorite. This one's an absolute pearl. Will you see this one? So kind of group riding again, right?
There we're going to go. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So he thought his mate was going to go and he didn't.
It's just typical group ride. If we just roll it back a little bit and we look at the rider behind, you can see, they look. So they're looking to see if it's clear. But the other guy, he actually doesn't look. He stops and puts his foot down, then he looks. So, just different levels of experience, you could say. And that's why group riding's so tricky, right? One's going to blame the other, but it's a racing incident or a riding incident, you might say.
Mark, there's an awful lot of information there to take away. So perhaps you could do your best at summarizing motorbike intuition, please.
Well, I guess, it's really collectively learning from every rider's mistakes, close calls and crashes, and it saves new riders learning the hard way. Why don't we use the valuable experience of older riders that have been around for a while? And, that's ultimately what kind of motorbike coach, what we're trying to do is this kind of aviation style, ultimately a black box, but, learning from other riders and, riding a motorcycle well, it's challenging and you won't learn it all in one video. We keep talking about the 10,000 hours of practicing the right techniques. And, I do have a lot of healthy debates with researchers and on this 10,000 hours. Some say it's kind of being debunked, but, if you look at 20 hours, that's not even 1% of 10,000. And obviously riders, they develop at different pace. Some riders might get mastery in 3,000 or 4,000. But, the thing is just to keep practicing and remember, more skill equals more fun. That's an important thing to remember too. It's not all gloom and doom.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you do 3,000 hours, 10,000 hours, whatever it is, of the same thing, the same journey without kind of widening your horizons or broadening your experiences on different types of roads or different types of look at those sort of half dozen clips we've seen there. There's all sorts of different types of riding and types of roads and types of situations that we need to be aware of. But, Mark, thank you. Look, there's been another insightful episode. Thanks for your time and your input. Perhaps we can tell the ladies and gentlemen what we're going to be talking about next time.
Yeah, the next one, episode 15. So that one's about drivers' behaviors and how to enhance your risk awareness.
Mm-hmm. My dad said to me when I first started riding on the roads, everyone on the road is an idiot. That's what we got to remember. Good. 100%. Mark, thank you. I look forward to talking about that one. Thanks for your time, mate. Have a good day.
No worries. Okay. Cheers, Michael.
Brilliant. Thank you to you for sticking with us as well. Thanks also to Honda Motorcycles UK. So Mark and I will be back next time, as you just heard. But in the meantime, don't forget to check out our other Better Riding episodes. There's a playlist link in the description below. But I've got 3 more places of interest to let you know about before you go anywhere. So firstly, search for Bennetts Bike Club, and that's our new social media site just for us riders. And it's full of actual proper experts to answer any motorcycle related question you may have. A similar offering can be found on our private Facebook group. Also, that's called Bennetts BikeSocial. And then finally, how about becoming a BikeSocial member? Now, membership is free if you insure your bike directly with Bennetts. If not, you can still pay to be a member. But being a member entitles you or enables you access to over 200 different types of motorcycle apparel, clothing, training, discounts, exclusives and competitions and such like. Just search BikeSocial membership. Well, thanks again. See you next time.
Honda Motorcycles are supporting this series because safety is one of their key business pillars, and their quest for safety inspires their innovations in products, technology and education, which is why they're committed to achieving zero traffic fatalities involving Honda mobility products worldwide by 2050.